Hey everyone, this is Corinne Lafont, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And you know, I start my show off the same way, bored or not, I don't care. I start my show off with gratitude. Always thankful, always grateful, no matter what. It's always best to be grateful no matter what the circumstances are because it could have been worse. And there's always somebody who's facing worse than you, and they're being grateful about it. So I'm thankful to be here, and I'm thankful to be surrounded again by another beautiful woman. Here she is, Chanté Dent, and she has a beautiful name too, Chante, like Chanté Moore, the
Thank
singer.
you.
Yes, Chanté Dent. And she's here to dent in your mind some really good stuff because
Yeah.
we're talking today about healing from sexual trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, physical trauma, just trauma. Trauma is trauma no matter what shape, color, size. It takes a form, yes, and trauma can have a debilitating impact on your life. Yes, I can relate to it so much. Let me tell you a bit about Chante before we start talking. So Chanté Dent is the founder and CEO of Earnest Love. I'll feature that in a little bit later in the show. Earnest Love Incorporated, an organization dedicated to helping women heal from emotional trauma. Chante has devoted herself to empowering survivors of all forms of emotional abuse as they heal, again that word, heal from their painful past. She's a former rape crisis counselor who received her Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology, so she and I share a degree in common from California State University, East Bay. She currently volunteers as a member of the RAINN Speakers Bureau. Welcome, Chanté Dent, to Between the Lines.
Hi. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that beautiful welcome.
Yes, and what is RAINN Speakers Bureau?
So, yes, so RAINN is a national organization. So, where anyone who's gone through a sexual trauma can make themselves available to either be interviewed or share their story. It's just literally like a database for survivors to be available to assist organizations if they need a speaker for a specific event. But overall, RAINN is a national sexual assault hotline. So if there's someone out there who just needs someone to talk to, they can go ahead and, reach out to that organization.
Are they open to people out in my area, do you think, in the Caribbean?
That is a wonderful question. It's a national hotline, and I'm pretty sure with various country codes, we could possibly, I can follow up with you and just make sure and see if that's available. And of course, if not, there's always additional resources, to where it's never a dead end. We'll get you something. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a US number that persons, if they need to reach me, it's easy to access me. So, I mean, that shouldn't be a problem.
Not at all.
I have a US number, and I mean, I'm available via email, and I'm willing to come and speak, and I'm open to that. This is awesome. So we need to follow up and keep in touch. Chante.
Oh, we will. Yes, indeed.
Yes. So Chante, healing, you hear that word coming up constantly, healing.
Yeah.
What I have found from my personal experience is that people move from one relationship to the next without healing, and they take the luggage and the baggage with them. And it's not only us as women, the men too, because we all go through some sort of trauma. We meet people and we don't know what they're coming with.
Yes.
What
true.
that person is coming with, what we are coming with, and we're not taking the time. And my years of being in relationship and coming from a psychologically traumatic, narcissistic, let me say specifically, narcissistic relationship, where they attack your mind, is psychological, is mental. It is traumatic, and that's the frightening thing, because you don't see the scars. It's not like somebody physically abused you and you can say, oh, you've been hurt, whatever. The scars are there and it's for life. And as I said to somebody on a previous episode on my show, once you attack the mind, you attack every part of your body, because once somebody gets at your mind, it's like they take full control and manipulation only if you allow them. And once you recognize what's going on, you have to take back that control and relearn yourself and debrief them and detox, and it's a whole lot of things. This is just my little tidbit of the story, but that trauma, when you look back, it comes all the way from childhood or even from epigenetics, as they say, from in the womb, where you might not have even remembered. So it's deeper, deeper than you think. I would love for you to share your story and the whole healing aspect, because healing is not like how you would go to a university or a class and you go and you finish on a particular day. It is not like that. So I preceded you a bit so that you can understand a little bit of where I'm coming from and the type of abuse that I went through. Even though the abuser will never acknowledge that, they never do. But I want you to be able to share your story so that persons who are listening to this could take away, even if it's one thing, and know that, they have support, whether in you, in me, in RAINN, or wherever they can get it. I want people to know that they can heal and overcome and be stronger than yesterday.
Absolutely. So you made a very good point, the statement where you said there are scars that people cannot see. And clearly, yes, unless an individual is somehow manifesting that pain in a way that is displayed in the natural, you're absolutely right. Many of those scars go unseen, and I call them those silent battles that we deal with, in our sacred place late at night when no one is around. We can wear a mask if we want to, but we know at the end of the day that doesn't heal anything. It covers a lot of pain, but it doesn't heal the pain. And I'll start by saying that's exactly where I was in my personal story. And unfortunately for me, it did begin as a child. And when sexual abuse happens in those very young ages, clearly you're not really making connections at that time. So depending on the situation that an individual is in, I feel like that determines the outcome of everything. And in my case, it was a situation where I was told, if you say something about this, you will get in trouble. And then subsequently also given gifts and items, to stay quiet. And I always put that out front in my story because my heart breaks for a lot of individuals who have different components of their stories that they don't quite understand, and it causes them to stay in a place of shame or embarrassment, and they never heal because they feel like what I went through is so out of the norm and so uncommon and so crazy that I don't want to utter one word to a soul because I'm embarrassed. And what I've learned to do is embrace my transparency and ability to be vulnerable, because I realize that's what's helping that person who's stuck in the corner, stuck in the back, deep, dark shadow somewhere, because they feel like no one can relate to them. So that was, again, sadly, the early part of my story where the sexual trauma happened at a young age. So I'm thinking, I can't say anything to anyone because I will get in trouble. And I always say at that young age, I'm not connecting the dots that there's no way no one's going to get on me for something that they did. But I'm just looking at or hearing this immediate threat and fear. So I did not say anything. And when I reflect back on my younger years, I can see, even though I love the strong-willed child that I was, you can ask my parents, they'll confirm. I also look back and see the moments and the seasons where I was insecure and I felt lost, and I unfortunately developed a deeply rooted people-pleasing mindset and personality. And I didn't really know who I was. Thankfully, I wasn't so far out because I did grow up in the home where I had, parents who loved me, and that worked out very well for me. To this day, I always say that was my saving grace in so many areas that I probably won't even be able to, understand fully, but I do know that helped me a great deal in the midst of all of the painful experiences that I had. So again, it was the childhood sexual trauma and just doing my best to navigate through life, dealing with that. And again, it was insecurities that came with that, becoming a people pleaser. And even though I confidently believe my core was to, as a Christian, to live a life that pleased God, or to live a life where I maintain, godly character, moral values, that was my heart's desire. But as you mentioned earlier, without properly healing from that painful or those painful experiences, I wasn't able to truly go all in, with what I truly wanted to be. And so it was years later, becoming, again, the best version of myself that was possible at that time, but still, falling into pit holes and ditches and not always, making the best decisions, etc. And then when I was in my mid-20s, unfortunately, that's when I experienced rape as an adult. And that was completely different, from the childhood experience. First of all, I buried the childhood experience. I didn't want to deal with it. And so when it happened as an adult, by nature, I did the same thing. I decided to bury it. And at that time, I said, what can I do to fix this? How can I make this work so that I can function and not feel like I was just raped? How can I move forward and sweep this under the carpet like everything else that I had, swept under the carpet? How can I do that? And so I felt like I succeeded in that area. I'm good because I'm going to act like it never happened. That was my way of coping and, self-preservation mode. Act like it never happened, rename it, call it sex. But there's no way. There's no way you're going to walk away from this place, a mess because you were raped. But as many people know, you can say what you want to say, call it what you want to call it. But at the end of the day, when the damage is done, it does remain unless we heal from, those wounds. So it was about a month or so later where I discovered I was pregnant. And that was the moment that I had to deal with everything. That was when I knew I literally had to tell my family, this is what happened to me. I, as an individual, had to face it. And it was very, very difficult. When I share my story, clearly, whether it's a time constraint or, just the environment I'm in, I may not have the opportunity to go into every intricate detail. So if someone hears it, they're thinking, oh, she said her story in that amount of time, so it must have been easy, and I'm like, absolutely not. It was not easy. It was difficult emotionally. And as I mentioned, being pregnant, that came, obviously that was a physical, difficulty that I had to navigate through as well. But here's the thing, if you are real with yourself, anyone out there listening, if you're honest with yourself, that at the end of the day, when it's just you and you have to self-examine and think about what's really going on in your heart and what's really going on in your mind, you realize that if there are some unresolved issues or wounds that you haven't healed from, you can't run from them. So it didn't take me long to figure that out. And after being in this place of, oh gosh, I just call it my dark place. And I wasn't happy, I was hurt. I was angry. But here's another thing. I also knew that there was going to be more. I'm like, I don't even really know how, but I can't stay in this place. I not have to, but I want to become that woman that I always wanted to desire myself to be. I don't know how to become her, but I know she's still in there. So it was that desire that caused me to shift and say, all right, I need to talk about this. I need to heal, whatever it's going to take to be free. I'm signing up. I'm ready. Because in the moment of feeling the aftermath of sexual trauma as an adult, that window was enough for me to say, I do not want the rest of my life to be like this. And as I mentioned, I was pregnant. So that was another layer of what do I do? How do I do it? Where do I go from here? And then the long story short, I kept this pregnancy. I didn't terminate the pregnancy, and the child was adopted. So in an interesting way, being pregnant allowed me to see the value of life. And pregnant with a child gave me a desire to live a better life, a healed life, if that makes any sense. It's sometimes hard to even describe it, but it was something about that pregnancy that caused me to fight on, you know, to press on. And you mentioned it, what happens in the womb, you know, affects the child. So that was another reason why I'm like, hey, fight for this child. If anything else, you know, be strong for this child in your womb. Don't allow the child to be, you know, affected by what you went through. It doesn't have to be that way. So I began to fight for my freedom, and it was an interesting journey, but I thank God for the Spirit of God that once I opened my heart to the direction of the Holy Spirit and the help of the people he sent my way, I was able to navigate through this process. And it's something about when you know that you're called to do something, you can't shake it. And it stirs up in you, you know, whether you're asleep or awake or thinking about it or not thinking about it, like it's in you. And that's kind of how I ended up being where I am today, where I've always had a heart, even as a young girl, to help people. I wanted to help every animal that was hurt, you know. So it's always been in me to have sympathy and empathy for people. But I didn't obviously know that it would be so specific to this area. So with great joy, I do go back and help women cross over to the other side for a couple of reasons. I remember that painful place. I never want to go back there again. And my heart breaks when I see people where I was. So I long to, when they're open, you know, to it, to help them, you know, give them hope. I think you mentioned this as well. Giving people hope to let them know healing is possible. You know, it is possible, and it's necessary if you want to truly enjoy life.
Yeah, I'm listening to you intently, as you can tell. I'm listening to you intently. And oh my God, I am. You said you gave up the child for adoption.
Yes.
Yes. Why did you do that, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, not at all. So that was definitely a process. I remember one day I was talking to my dad and I said, Dad, can you just tell me what to do? Like, you tell me what to do. I don't want to think about this decision. And he said, you know, first of all, I can't tell you what to do, and no one should tell you what to do. This decision has to come from you. And I also want you to know there'll be pros and cons either way. You know, adoption, pros and cons, keep the child, pros and cons, abort the child, pros and cons, you know. So he was helping me to create just the foundation of truly, you know, thinking through what I wanted to do and not making, you know, like a surface level spontaneous decision. And then there was one day that I felt like, oh yeah, I can keep this child. I could be the best mom ever. And then there are other days where I'm like, no, I can't do this. And then, yeah, going back and forth, you know, working this process and even doing research, you know. And then I remember the day I felt like I really knew. I shared with my family, like, I'm going to abort this child. I'm going to have an abortion. I don't have to go through this, and I'm not going to go through this. And it was just, ugh. And, I remember saying, you know, I shared this in my book where I said my dad, and it was so beautiful. My heart smiles every time I think on it because, my gosh, he said it in such a loving way. And I could see it, like I can envision it like it was yesterday. We were in the kitchen and there were other family members in that space. And he said, well, you know, Chante, I clearly understand. I can't even imagine, you know, what you're going through and how you're thinking about everything. And he says, I'm just wondering though, just what if you were able to, you know, like have the strength to go through the pregnancy. And then after giving birth, perhaps you could allow the child to be adopted, or maybe even at that time you would maybe think to raise the child, etc. And it was just something about the way he presented it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel guilty or shame.
Yeah.
I just felt like, good question. And I thought about it. And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Never know how it could affect someone else. You know, it was just, again, considering myself and also considering others. And that's not always easy to do when you're in a crisis like that. But at the same time, I feel like when you can truly, genuinely just think from, you know, your heart, and you can make the right decision, the healthy decision. So I thought about it that day, and I thought, yeah, what if I could kind of go through this and be an inspiration or help someone else one day. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to go through with this pregnancy. And like I said earlier, it was some type of connection between this child and I, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to be strong for you and you be strong for me to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was that process. And at the end of the day, the reality of it is I was able to develop a godly love for this child.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, because of the way it happened,
Mm-hmm.
at that time, mentally and emotionally, I felt like it was best for the child and for me that this child would be in a home where there was mom and dad, a
Mm-hmm.
healthy environment,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, emotionally, and mentally strong. And at that time, I knew that's not something I could have given, to that child.
Yeah.
So all of that was a part of the reason why I allowed the child to be adopted. And it is an open adoption. And I always add that because that was just all God orchestrating everything. So it's an experience where we are learning every day in terms of the next step. And at this point, the child literally leads the way, and we know each other, and we're, again, one day at a time. And just literally, there are days where I'm still in awe of how my story has unfolded. But again, I'm so grateful, and I can't even describe the amount of joy that it gives me to say that not only have I walked in my healing, but strong enough to go help someone else. And I know that's not everyone's story, and so I never take it lightly. I just thank God that I have the strength to do it.
Yeah. So you are still involved in the life of your child over with the parents who
Yes,
adopted
so
him.
I met her parents before I even gave birth. So we were able to establish a very healthy
Relationship. Yeah.
relationship. And so that was so beneficial. So again, with it being an open adoption, yes, there is communication, you correspond. And it was so beautiful because, again, her mom and I we're friends. When I first got married and I had married, questions, I would call her sometimes. So,
Yeah.
it really is a beautiful relationship.
Nice. And that's all part of the healing. And
It is.
does your child know that you're the mom? Oh,
Yes, she does. She knows her story. She's seen pictures of me, and yes, she does know. And I feel like that's another part of my story that I can go,
yes.
because it's like there are no secrets for her.
Exactly.
And
And don't make it
that is
traumatic. That's like passing on the trauma, and you don't want to be passing on the trauma to your children.
Absolutely.
Whether you keep them or whether you give them up. And when I say give them up, I don't mean it in a negative way, but
Oh,
adoption,
absolutely. I do get it.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But you maintain a relationship with them. And I believe in open adoption, like you say, where if you have to, you just, the situation that you're in currently, you look at it and it's like, I prefer to have the child in a certain environment that he or she can grow and develop, as opposed to staying with you. You're just not ready for that yet, and it's unfair to the child. But maintain a relationship with the adoptive parent, so that it's a holistic, nurturing environment. I believe in that. Now,
Yeah.
you going through all of this, and when I look at my story, and I want persons to listen to this very carefully, a lot of us, we ask, why this had to happen to me? Why me? Why me? And I have learned that it had to be you. You were chosen for that to happen to, so that you can tell the story. You can have a testimony. It had to be you. It couldn't be the next door neighbor. It couldn't be. It couldn't be the girl down the street. Yeah, it had to be you. And it might sound mean and hurtful, and somebody might say, why are you taking this on yourself? No, it had to be you. It had to be me to go through this, because we are the ones who had to tell the story a particular way. We are the ones that have that inner trait, characteristic, that God given, whatever it is, just like people in the Bible. God didn't choose the big to do and the well to do. He chose the regular, the lowest of the lows. Not that we are lowest of the lows, but I'm just trying to make a reference that the people who he chose were the ones who obviously said the same thing. Why me? Why me? Moses said the same, all of them, they are the ones that were chosen to do it for a reason. And it makes no sense running. Like you mentioned earlier, you try to run, but when you run, there you are.
Yeah.
The problem runs with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that I learned is, yes, I could have stayed in the space of why me, you know, why did this have to happen to me, etc. And one of the major transitions was when I began to, number one, focus on my healing, and also how could this, in the strange way, you know, how can I change my perspective? I'll put it that way. How can I change my perspective about what happened to me? The first order for me was to, number one, understand that it's not a perfect world, you know, imperfect people who are not robots, who God is a good God. That doesn't mean everybody is good, you know?
That's right.
So, you know, people have a free will. So that was the one thing I had to kind of, you know, keep in mind. And then the second thing is to, again, change my perspective, you know, and for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, as a follower of Christ, I was wondering, okay, God, this happened. So how can it be used for your glory? Can it be used for your glory? If so, fill me in, you know, because if it happened, yes, how can it be used, you know? And that was me changing my perspective so I didn't stay in that state of, like you said, why me? Why me? That's a frustrating place to be in. And it's hard to heal when you stay in the why me phase, you know, because it happened to me, what's the next step? I want to heal, and maybe I am going to help other people, or because I've healed, I can be a healthy wife. I can be a healthy mom, you know. I may not start an organization, I may not write a book, but I'm going to be a healthy individual.
That's right.
So whatever my purpose is, you know, I'm going to be an amazing, excellent, you know, employee because I'm healed emotionally.
Yeah. You know, you keep mentioning the word healing, and I want people may be asking, or they will ask, they're hearing healing. How did you go about your healing? And it's hard for me on my personal journey to say how I heal. Now, I know I went to Christ. I still follow Christ. I keep my gaze on him. So that's the first thing I will tell persons that I did, because I cannot, Chante, do anything without him. So I cannot, the do-it-yourself approach is definitely not working. And not that I didn't try it, but it doesn't work. And you quickly, if not quickly, slowly and painfully realize it ain't working. So one of the ways I would say to people is you just have to submit to Christ. And if you're a non-believer, well, I don't know what to tell you. I would say take your time and get to know him. If you don't know him and you don't believe, it doesn't matter what you believe. He believes in you.
Yes,
and you could take your time. Nobody's rushing you. He's not rushing you to get to know him. Take your time and ask him questions. Follow and seek until you get to know in your own way. My relationship with him, Chanté's relationship with him is different to how your relationship can be with him. It doesn't matter. Just open yourself to him, because the strength that you need to do this, no human can give it to you. No human can give it to you. So people will be asking, how did you heal? How did you, get through your healing process? If you were to share, I like to use the number 3. 3 steps, 3 things that helped you on your healing journey. What were they?
Definitely, as you alluded to, the first step was being open and literally surrendering to my Heavenly Father. Literally saying, okay, God, in my own strength, I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. So I stayed open, through prayer and through conversations to allow the Lord to speak to my heart and give me direction. And that was that first step, being open to whatever God would speak to my heart. The second step was to be transparent and vulnerable, which to me means I couldn't be afraid to self-evaluate. Why are you feeling this way, Chante? You may be angry. I journaled a lot. So my journaling was a lot of my self-evaluations of what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What's the root of it? And okay, Lord, I'm going to pray about this, and I need you to give me insight. So the journaling, I say journaling can be number two, because there's a lot that's inside of that journal. You know, but so definitely going to God and being open to his instruction and his direction, his love is like my favorite word. Being open to God's love, let him love on you and heal your broken heart. And then secondly, yes, just being open and transparent, and that may transpire for you through journaling, through talking. For me, it was a lot of journaling. And then lastly, I would definitely say having a support system if you can. So my family, you know, my sister, my family was there for me. I had a few friends that were there, and everyone is different, but I did seek therapy. I had a rape crisis counselor, and I had a regular psychologist. So I had a team, you know, so being open to God, whatever that looks like for you, and then being real, transparent within yourself, and then being open to the help that God sends your way. And that'll manifest differently for everyone, but I feel like that's like an umbrella type of you know, way of looking at your healing process, and then you don't feel like you're all alone.
Yeah. It takes a while to come out of that shell that you will surround yourself with, because you will surround yourself with a protective shell, a bubble, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Because you really, that whole vulnerability, you're afraid of putting yourself out there again. And what came to mind too is intimacy with another person. You know, that trauma, and especially sexual trauma, any type of trauma, but you know, your whole, people don't realize, especially as a woman, I can't speak for men, but as a woman, we trap everything in our bodies.
Yes.
It is trapped in your body. And to be intimate sexually with somebody, it is just not the same.
So true. I wrote a book about my life. Shared that with you. And in that book, I do dedicate a portion of that book in terms of how I worked through the trauma of being sexually intimate with my husband. And also, I always say talking. We had to eventually talk about it. My husband and I had to eventually talk about it. But in my book, I do talk about how we kind of worked through that whole process. So I definitely feel like you are so right. And I always tell the ladies that, yes, when you're sexually traumatized, believe it or not, agree with it or not, every area of your life is affected. Every area. And it is important to stay open-minded to, wait, what other areas in my life, you know, have been affected because of this sexual trauma? And you said something that was so on point, because sometimes people just don't know, where do I start? What do I do? And, you know, that's why I love and appreciate any resource person or organization that is in this industry helping people heal, because again, some people don't even believe that healing is possible. Through my organization, I also teach classes. I show women what the healing process can look like. And, you know, we go through these classes over the course of weeks. And I always say, hey, at the end of the class, you may not say, okay, Chante, I'm healed. And that's fine. But I guarantee that you would have had some tools, you know, through our workbook, through our conversations, that when these courses are over, you'll know what to go back to. You'll know what steps to take. You'll be able to look at it and, yes, that heal, love, live. Heal emotionally, love earnestly, and live freely. How do I do that? So that's my formula. I call it my formula. You know, that heal emotionally so that you can love earnestly, and then you live freely.
Live freely. And you know, Chante, freedom is the one thing everybody's looking for. Freedom and love.
Yes,
and
indeed.
just, you know, just being free. People don't realize they're running down money, they're running down the status, the car, the house, or whatever. And that doesn't make them happy. And let's say you get more money, it still doesn't make you happy. You're running down the gorgeous man with a big body. I mean, yeah, they look juicy and nice, but hey, you're in a traumatic relationship and it's like the worst thing ever. You know, you have to recalibrate your mindset about relationships. I mean, over the years, I had to do that, recalibrate how I look at relationships, what do you really look for? What is it that really matters to you? Is it the big body, the guy in the gym, the good looking magazine guy? What?
Yeah.
What really matters? What really matters? As you age, that changes. The things that you would have run down before, you reach a certain age, is not that you're looking for anymore.
Yeah.
You're not looking for that. So it's a whole lot of recalibration, I
So
see you have a
true.
podcast as well that people can listen to. Earnest
Absolutely.
Love. Mhm.
Yes, through the Earnest Love website, you can definitely go onto that website and listen to some of the podcasts. And we also will begin posting videos because, again, my passion is just truly, to help women. And you mentioned this earlier, trauma is trauma. So I'll also teach classes where we're healing from emotional trauma, because at the end of the day, the formula in general, it's the same. It's the same process, and specifics might be different in terms of our stories, but there is a formula. There are general steps that we can take. And I always say, Earnest Love, Chanté Dent may not be everything you need, but my prayer is that we can be a resource and we can drop some golden nuggets that you can embrace. And that next step may be a therapist, it may be a friend, but we just hope that to the best of our ability, we can be a part of someone's healing journey and help them get that much closer to freedom, and as well remind them and encourage them that freedom is possible. You don't have to stay bound emotionally. As long as you're alive, you might as well enjoy it. And one of the best ways to enjoy life is to be emotionally free from those painful experiences of your past.
That's right, because they do haunt you. We are the only species where the past haunts us. Animals don't have that problem. They keep it moving. They're not standing up thinking, oh my God, what did Chante do me yesterday? And I just don't like that girl and I need to get back at her. They don't have time for that. They're not thinking that. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. What happened yesterday is gone. They don't even remember yesterday. They're like, we're in the now. This is happening now. And right now, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
So this whole monkey chatter and your past coming back to haunt you, those type of things, you have to rebuke that, because to make you feel more shame and guilt in the present moment. So it's like you never get to live freely. You could never get to live freely, Chante, because the past keeps running you down.
So true. Yeah.
My word, it's a constant struggle, but you have to learn how to be strong. And as I tell you, the only way to be strong is through my faith. I don't know any other way. There's no pill, there's no doctor, there's no nothing. The best doctor is God. And who don't want to hear it, I make no apologies. That is just what it is. That is just what it is. I don't know any other way. And I see your book here. Of course, I love lemonade, and I love how you turn the sour experience into something sweet.
Yes. And that book, absolutely. The book is available on Amazon, and that's exactly what it's about, because I just start by saying I had all these sour lemons, and not just sexual trauma, it's just other issues, right? And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So, and we keep referring back to it, our faith, our belief in God. It's like, all right, Lord, I have these lemons. What's up with it?
What do I do with it? Make lemonade.
Yeah, so I say my ingredients, his ingredients, beautiful combination.
That's right. And if somebody wants to add to your recipe, they are free to add to the recipe.
I always tell people our ingredients are not the same. But at the end of the day, you want refreshing lemonade.
That's right. Something that tastes good. I want to feature this video here.
Yes, these are some video snippets that I've recorded. Inspirational videos.
I'm wondering, what secrets are you keeping? My lemonade recipe, turning my sour experience into something sweet, is a truth for some of us, but not all of us. Some of our sour experiences stick with us. We don't want to talk about them. We do sweep them under the carpet and move on as if they never happened. And when we do expose the lemons, the sour experiences, sometimes we don't really deal with how we feel about them. Those emotions remain secretive, where we're angry, but we want to appear that we're happy, or we want to act as if it wasn't that big of a deal and I'll be okay. It'll be all right. I'll get better eventually. But you know what? It's very important that we acknowledge those sour experiences in that we make a decision, a sound decision, that we're going to change our perspective about the situation and heal. And it's going to be a journey. It's a fight that's not easy, but it's a fight that's worth it. Fighting for your freedom. It is possible. I thank you for joining this community, and I look forward to encouraging you and inspiring you however I can so that your sour experiences can become something sweet.
That's a great way to end the show.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Yes, it's a great way to end the show. And I really appreciate you being on the show. And we lasted more than 30 minutes. We have been here for an hour and I think 5 minutes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I really, when I'm talking to my guests, I don't really cut them off when it's juicy like this. I can't do the cutoff thing. It's a good thing it's my show, so I could do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. I mean, this is awesome. I look forward to doing more work with you, Chante, because we're in the same boat. We're swimming in the same direction, and I would love to do more to help a lot of women and men.
And
men are suffering, and because we have the perception that men are not supposed to cry, they're not supposed to be hurt, they're supposed to be big and strong. They are hurting badly. I'm telling you, they are hurting badly, and we must not make them seem as if they are not supposed to feel emotions or express their emotions.
Right.
That is something that I'm also passionate about, how we treat our men and how we grow up our men, how we program them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
How we program them, because they are being prepared for us women who come out there, and if they are programmed that way, it already is a time bomb. It's a ticking time bomb.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we as women who are putting out these men, we need to be careful what we pour into them and how we pour into them. Please.
I agree. Yes.
Please don't set them up for failure, for hurt, for trauma. Let's all focus on love. That's all I'm about. Just like Chante says, it's all about love. If you don't know what it means or what it feels like, there's one man above who could tell you what it is. God is love. Yes, he's the definition of love. You don't need to look it up in a dictionary or Google it. God is love.
God is love.
That's it. Okay, he's the best Google ever. See, his name begins with G. God Google. Check it. Okay. Chante, is there anything that you want to say to close off the show?
You know, I just want to encourage anyone out there who is suffering in silence. I can imagine that it may be difficult to take the first step, but I just want to root you on and hopefully give you that final nudge to say, just do it. Reach out, get the help that you need, because again, life is so precious. It's so beautiful, and you are alive with a purpose. And my prayer is that you can fulfill that purpose and free, being emotionally free. I want that for you, and I pray that you want it for yourself. You're not alone. I may not know you personally, but I am rooting for you. And again, I hope that you would take that final step and say yes to the help that you need so you can live life free and enjoy it to the fullest.
Amen to that. Chante, thank you so much for being on Between the Lines.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.